Hi, I'm Datta Khalsa. Welcome to another episode of Community Cafe. And we have with us several members on the Community Advisory Committee on Homelessness, including Fred Keeley. Thank you for joining.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
As well, this is just a generally, I suppose, community and roughly land use based show. One of the more interesting topics that came up recently was Doug Harr, Esquire, next to me, who, with his wife, purchased one of the more unique Santa Cruz properties on the west side, featured recently on the cover of the Good Times. It was a good article.
Oh, that.
Yes. Also with us tonight is Reverend Jim Weller, also a man of many hats, including a nice one he's wearing tonight, but most recently, I think, has taken on his shoulders the load of providing housing for low-income residents of the county on the church property on High Street.
Yeah, my church is building an apartment project on the church property. Yeah.
And then Brent Adams, who's no stranger to our show, who has taken on homelessness and community issues for probably the better part of the last 20, 30 years. Currently runs the Warming Center as program director. So thank you all, gentlemen, for joining me. And out of this wide assortment of guests, we are going to create a show for you. And I'm as curious as you as to what's going to come of it. So I guess I have to start with the headlines. You bought this property for $1.6 million. People thought you were crazy. Tell us why you're not.
I got that checked. So I'm not. We bought it almost 4 years ago for the 1.6, and I thought maybe it would take about 2 years to figure out how to build on it. We'd already talked to Eric Marlett and Ryan down at the city, and they said they would be nice, and they were. But the architecture took a long time to figure out how to, like Mark Primack originally planned, how to put some housing around the outside of the temple without obscuring the view. And that took a long time to figure out. We had to get a historic architect. So what's going to happen is we're going to move in January, which will be nearly 4 years from when we bought it.
Is he the project architect you're using for it?
No, we used a different architect.
Okay.
Mark and we didn't work together, but he had done an original drawing that showed having a house here and a house there on the south and north end without encroaching on the temple so that the public could still enjoy it. And that's what we are doing.
So you're still doing that. So the houses will be kind of the lions or the poi dogs.
Exactly.
You enter the temple.
Yeah. On our house is a 2,900 square foot house with a garage that has an ADU above 500 square feet. They're telling me I should charge $2,500 a month for that. Who can pay that? That's a barista or a bartender or something. You probably got to work at Looker to pay that amount. So it's a little high. But we plan to build a townhouse on the other side. And then the city told us we're going to be subject to a low-income inclusionary rule that I'd have to pay $175,000 to them in order to build that. So we're still in a quandary because I'd rather directly contribute to a homeless program than maybe hand over a check like that. So it's a pretty big ask. But we want to, the original idea, we were going to live with some of our friends. We were calling it the Ohanahiga Ranch, and the Ohana being kind of the family you choose. But we'll see. We're going to move in January, and we're going to plan the other half when we can.
So it's kind of, it was a Hawaiian and a Norwegian reference.
I know.
Perfect place to happen.
We are not, we're not confused about our identities. Yes, we are.
With Hindu architecture. So
yes,
that's perfect.
The Hindus and the Norwegians are best friends.
All right. Well, maybe we can make more sense of our Community Advisory Committee. We have the main facilitator of that, Fred Keeley, with us. So I don't know how to go from a segue from that to this, but here we are. So can you speak a little bit as to what is going on with the efforts for that task force?
Thank you. Perhaps it's might be useful to lay a little groundwork. What is this and where did it come from? And I also want to thank you for including me in the conversation this evening. Very exciting what you and your wife are doing on that location. It's been I have friends who live almost directly across the street and have for a very long time, and they're very excited about this actually. And thank you for all your good work and your church, and all the good things they do. The community,
sitting in the glow of this illustrious personage here.
Amazing.
The Community Advisory Committee on Homelessness was a concept of the Santa Cruz City Council, and what they wanted to do. There's obviously the homeless challenge in our community, people living and experiencing homelessness, has many, many facets to it. Tremendous challenge. Brent has been doing very good work for many years with his warming center and so on. And it really will take an entire community to respond and deal with these issues. I think the moderately good news is also the moderately bad news, which is we're not alone in Santa Cruz. This is an issue that needs to be dealt with. You can look at it from a wide variety of points of view, a civil rights point of view, a simple human need that we can't really say no to people and ought not to. So the council, who are policymakers, have been working on this issue for some time, and the newly elected city council, been in place a couple of years now, they want to see a serious effort made in this sort of compound complex issue. What can you do? So they appointed about a dozen folks who, quite a few people applied to be on it. They appointed about a dozen folks, a couple of people who currently are experiencing homelessness, a couple of people who work downtown, a couple of people that are in neighborhood, the same thing you would do, right? It's exactly what you would do. And so that's what they did, the mayor and the city council. So the body began meeting in the latter part of August and has a time to it. It doesn't go on forever. It goes on till about March of next year. And in that period of time, what Vice Mayor Cummings, who has just joined us, and the mayor and the city council have asked the CACH to do is take a look at the work that was done by a similar body in 1999, in 2000, and in 2017. Because there is a lot of work already done.
Here in town?
Yes, here in Santa Cruz, and reported to the city council. The idea here is to say, what are those actions that can be taken by our city government that can help address the many challenges for those folks who are experiencing homelessness? Short-term, immediate, such as hygiene needs, whether it's bathrooms, showers, that kind of thing. It's so immediate every day for people. A little bit longer look, which is what do you do this winter with regard to winter camping, since the Salvation Army probably will not be doing this year. So there's a loss. So just to get back to even is going to take some real work. And I think most folks would say, as much as we love the Salvation Army, whatever they were doing in and of itself, they were part of a larger enterprise to try to deal with camping and or winter sheltering and camping. And so now there's a large need there, and the CACH will be making some recommendations to the vice mayor, the mayor, and the full city council here in about mid-December about what to do on the hygiene issue, maybe looking at what kind of criteria work for winter camping, and then a longer term look, the sort of 2, 3, 4 year outlook for institutional assistance, if you will. And I want
adding
to be
maybe
careful about
supply.
that. Well,
Yeah.
I'm one of those people, and first of all, I'm not a voting member of this thing at all. What I am is essentially the presiding officer, help them work their way through, because as you know, I've been at this a long time as an elected official and so on, and a volunteer in the community. And so I have that knowledge of institutions and how they work. Whereas
and maybe how they don't work as well.
And how they don't work. Fair enough, absolutely fair enough. And most of the people on this body have a lot of good thinking and opinions and belief systems and values, but they haven't necessarily worked in this process.
Right.
So I can help them in process, not what are they going to do, how can they get it done?
Yeah.
And they are the ones with the what do we do, the folks who are on there. And I must say it's a group of very thoughtful people.
Well, I hope
very
we get
earnest.
bring you back in 6 months and get a glowing report on how things are progressing. The man next to you,
We'll see about that.
Reverend Jim Weller, took matters into his own hands and basically is using his church's lands to provide a place for housing to become. How many units are you adding on there?
We're looking at 30 to 40 units at this point. It's still in the planning stages.
How's that going compared to how your expectation was in terms?
Well, it's been quite a journey. You know, we submitted an initial preliminary application to the city last May. A full-fledged concept. We said to the city, look, this is what we're thinking of doing. They were very supportive. The planning department gave us tons of feedback and was helpful.
Who's the architect on that?
We haven't chosen an architect yet. I shouldn't say we haven't chosen an architect yet.
It might help. Some of them know. I mean, they're somewhere between where Fred Keeley is and where you are in terms of knowing what works and what doesn't work and who to talk to.
Yeah. But anyway, we did get that feedback and we were given a lot of confidence. And then we had a required community engagement meeting at my church in which the community came in to hear us tell about what we're going to do. And it was what we expected. You know, a lot of NIMBYs came out, neighbors who don't want to see anything go.
Always true.
Every time.
And
every
we got to
time.
listen.
Yeah.
And sometimes we go forward.
So we listened. We listened very carefully. We wrote down verbatim every single comment that we got from dozens and dozens of people. And then we went back to the drawing board. And so we've been revising the project, trying to be sensitive. And
what size units are you talking about?
well, it's an interesting project. It's going to be primarily one apartment building, one large apartment building. With a mix of units, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments designed for families mainly, and some 20 or so co-living units, which will be apartments with 4 bedrooms, sharing common facilities, kitchen, dining area.
It's a good model. It's being used in a lot of
Right,
European
exactly.
cities.
And so it's really designed to serve a range of people. There'll be, our goal is to have 25% of the units available to people of below area median income.
The city will also ask you to do that.
The city's going to make us set aside 15%, but we're going beyond that.
Good for you.
And
Will you have means testing?
for the 15%, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think that's been a downfall of low-cost housing models, historically, is they don't means test, and you end up with the mayor of New York living in rent-controlled housing, for example. So
Oh, yeah.
Well,
No,
this city
this will
told
be
me that
inclusionary.
if
This will
we
be
did
a
it-
contract
yes,
between us and the
inclusionary.
city. Yeah.
And then what's the term? Do people rotate through here, or is this permanent housing?
Oh, no, this is permanent housing. This is not transitional shelter. This is not homeless housing. This is straight ahead, privately financed, no public subsidy apartment construction.
Good for you.
But we're going to be able to do it affordably because we have one huge advantage, which is that we own the land.
The land is free.
We don't have to pay for the land.
Yeah. Do you think you'll be able to get any kind of institutional financing, maybe Santa Cruz County Bank, for example? It'd be a nice thing for them to get behind.
We actually have that bank in mind.
Okay.
Although, since we're part of a national religious denomination, we also have available to us the National Church Building and Loan Fund,
Oh, wow.
which may be able to give us better terms for the construction loan. It's a big project, though. It's a $16 million project.
Well, these days, that'll barely buy you one house on the bluff. But
It would buy me 3 of my house.
there you go. Well, thank you. I respect the initiative that you've taken in putting that together. So, so Brent, what can you say as to preparations? You probably have more insight than most. What's being done in preparation for this coming winter with things like Salvation Army scaling
Well,
back? and
that's
such?
I'm here to issue a red alert homeless shelter bed emergency.
Okay.
Traditionally, so I operate the warming center program as well as the day and night storage program and laundry, among other things that we offer scalable design, meaning no population caps, and I want to keep hitting that note, which is one of the problems we're having in this city and nationwide around homelessness programs. It's the population. It's the population cap that creates scarcity and forces people into the street, and we're actually producing homelessness in this way. But when we talk about warming center, we are the backup plan. But again, this year we're going to be the main show. We open infrequently based on forecast temperatures of 38 degrees or extreme rain events. We'll be open between 15 and 30 nights this winter. And also we run a program in Watsonville. These are not city or county funded programs. This is the community coming up to coming to the rescue for a city that's been operating an inadequate system all along. And this year, painfully, more inadequate than ever before we've seen. No calls for winter shelter this year, not a single bed added. Salvation Army is now a year-round shelter, and it's been running at the margins all summer long. In fact, I have a shuttle route outside of my facility every night, begging for people to get on there. Nope, sorry, we're full, all summer long. City is also counting the encampment at River Street Camp, about 50 people, so 50 and 50. 100 beds were done, but that's been running at the margins all summer. So we have hundreds of people just waiting right now for the winter shelter to open up. I'm getting calls to my hotline. The hotline is handy dandy, easy to remember, 246-1234. That's how you find out about how to get into shelter, how to get a blanket, anything you need. Warming Center provides that for free. There will be no winter shelter. Red alert, everyone. So what we're doing is calling out to the city to activate. In the county, more appropriately, the sheltering program is operated and gets the contract through the Homeless Action Partnership. If people don't know, Homeless Action Partnership is how we get the money from the federal government. And recently, those multi-millions from the state, where did it go? Seems to have evaporated. With that kind of money, we should have a really dedicated winter shelter this year. What are we about? We need to be raising the floor of experience up to something more dignifying, rather than pretending we're going to get everyone into housing like that's the federal government housing first model, where all the money goes into this space called housing first. Coordinated entry, 180-2020, smart path, all these things are really just organizations trying to get people into housing with no housing development. The county never, or the federal government never put money into development. So we have a broken system. We have a golden bridge to nowhere, letting people fall off onto the street, more people than ever, and it's up to the Warming Center to come to the rescue. Salvation Army is doing yeoman's work this year. Excellent. But they're not going to renew the VFW shelter this year. So we're going to see, I don't know what we're going to see, but we're really challenging the city and the county to do something emergency. The Salvation Army, winter shelter traditionally opens for 100 beds on November 15th. And so that's what we're expecting.
Okay. Well, to your right is the incoming mayor, who no doubt has all the answers. So thank you, Justin, for joining us. You're on the hot seat.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So what can you share is being done actively to prepare for the immediate crisis coming up this winter?
With regards to
homelessness and shelters? Yes.
Well, I recently reached out to the city manager, and we're going to be meeting with the county very soon to extend our conversation around, what we're going to be doing. We obviously have been thinking about how the city's going to deal with the upcoming shelter, well, just the winter in general. We are going to be keeping 1220 River Street open. Mm-hmm. That's going to be one of our ways of trying to help address with the people who are going to be without shelter and sleeping outside. And as Brent was saying, I'm very much, and also been working with the city, trying to see how we can have more warming centers, because I haven't been in a position where I've been able to have conversations to understand exactly what is lined up for the winter, but Brent's reached out to us and has expressed his concerns along with many other people in the community, and we're really trying to figure out, in terms of warming centers, what can we have open and established, and really trying to ensure that as we move forward that we're going to have suitable shelters open for this winter.
And then I guess broadening the scope to longer range solutions, what specific directives does the city have that they're putting forth for the coming year? What would you like to see done in terms of perhaps more density along the main corridors, or There have been some programs for encouraging accessory dwelling units, cutting fees. I know the county has cut their fees for accessory dwelling units. Is the city going to take additional steps in that direction as well?
Well, bringing it back, I want to see if we can take this into different questions because
Okay.
I'm unsure, because you started with ADU, we were starting with homelessness.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about ADUs and then housing. So which portion,
Well, they're related. A lot of people feel they're related because they see it as a supply issue. If there's not enough density, if there's not enough affordable housing, there will be more homeless people. Efforts such as rent control tend to be divisive because some people think that rent control is going to be the answer. Other people say, well, look at any rent control city, Berkeley, San Francisco, and so on, and you'll find the highest rents because it has the opposite effect. So I think everybody agrees, with the exception of people who don't want to lose their beloved beach town, that density, building supply is the only way that we can probably address homelessness in the way of either short-term shelters. New York City, for example, has been building large shelters for the short term, but it doesn't seem like there's a way around it. So for a long-range vision of bringing more balance, having a housing element, having more affordable housing, the discussion about increasing number of stories allowed along the main transportation corridors, are those in the city's sights, or are there enough other issues that it's not really being
I think
looked at?
before we talk about addressing increased density along the corridors, I think one of the big things we have to address if we're discussing homelessness is services. Mm-hmm. Because without services, you can put as much housing in as you want, but how are you helping the people, right? So you have people who have substance abuse issues, mental health issues, all sorts of issues that they're dealing with internally that makes it difficult for them to be able to actually maintain a job, pay their bills on time. If we don't have services in place that allow them to become sustained in themselves.
So you're focusing on the link between the immediate crisis and transitional, getting people treatment who need treatment, getting people vocational training who need that.
Well, I think it's both and, right? With people who are truly suffering, we really need to make sure that they are getting the services that they need. Because when we talk about people who are homeless or houseless, there's a lot of different sections of who those people are.
Right.
You have some people who are suffering from alcoholism, drug abuse. You have some people who are mental health. You have some people who are just working poor who can't afford to live here.
Yeah.
So we have to divide these people into these different sections and try to figure out with the resources that we have, what is the best that we can do with these different sections of people, right?
Yeah.
And so, for example, I think that there's the possibility that we could have safe parking programs for people who live in their cars who are working poor. Yes. Right? And I'm willing to reach out to
Maybe they show a badge of some sort that says, yes, I have employment, I'm working.
Sure. We can have a permit process where those people, the city partners with the boardwalk, for example. I'm just
In that parking lot.
Speculations, right? We work with the boardwalk and we say, hey, you have a place where people can drive in and out. Those people can pay a minimal fee to park here for the night, porta potties, showers,
Yep.
all these things. They work in our community, they live in our community. That's one section of the homeless that we're able to provide some services for.
Yep.
Now we also have people who have addiction issues. We need to partner with the county. We need to make sure that they have counselors, they can check in, we can deal with these people in a specific way and provide them with some form of housing and supportive services that they need. But I think the biggest thing is that us trying to say that there's a one-stop solution to homelessness, we don't have that.
way.
Well, if that were the case, I would have only invited one guest.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And this is only a fraction of the people that we need at the table, but I appreciate you guys have been working hard. I mean,
Do you mind
I hear.
if I jump in on this?
Sure.
A little bit. I think there's a couple of things that are worth distinguishing, and I think the Vice Mayor is absolutely correct. that that the service side is where to focus, and then let that drive what kind of capital investments you need to make. And let me tell you why I think that. The notion of, and I want to distinguish between housing affordability and issues around homelessness. So we're going to I want to distinguish those, and the reason for it is that I believe it is absolutely a fool's errand to think that we in this community or any other community can build enough housing that you start to bend the price curve. It's simply not
There's just
true.
an unlimited demand.
My point is that whether it's in Santa Cruz or it's in Southern California, California's housing market, and especially on the coast, is a $1 trillion market. There is no amount of saying we're going to pass this bond and we're going to do this and we're going to do this, or the gentleman building 16 units or whatever, that somehow is going to deal with housing affordability.
So do you
It
think
will
Measure
not.
Measure H wouldn't have helped?
That's not my argument. My argument was Measure H would have been an enormous help, not in bending the price curve. So now let me try to go to the second issue. There is reason, because of that, is the reason you're going to build what you're going to build, and why there are inclusionary ordinances and so on. It has nothing to do with saying, gee, if we just do enough of this, instead of the house that costs $1.6 million today is going to cost $400,000 in 10 years because we've now got enough supply to meet the demand. None of that is going to happen. So get over that. What can happen is we can build housing for workforce. We can build housing for those experiencing homelessness who need the transition work to get into housing that is safe for them. Those are all worthy of pursuit. But the idea that by having an inclusionary ordinance, or by building more, by saying we can have 4 stories instead of 2, and that is going to make the community more affordable in terms of housing, it is simply a fallacy. There is not a shred of evidence in California or any other place that experiences significant amount of folks experiencing homelessness. There's not a shred of evidence that that will work. The only thing that is going to work is go where the vice mayor's talking about, where the reverend is talking about. That is worthwhile, but it should not be confused with making housing more affordable. That isn't going to happen.
I'd say both are true. I wouldn't dismiss the supply argument.
Show me a place in California in the last 10 years that's built more housing and their housing got more affordable.
Well, but you
Give me an
still-
example.
Right next to you is sitting someone who's going to provide 30 to 40 units.
No, the
of
market
what's
did
gonna
not
be-
get more affordable
Well,
if he
it won't-
builds those
He's
houses.
not there yet.
The price won't drop.
And then
But
sitting
if
on
it
your other
does-
side,
Are you
Price won't
suggesting that if you build more housing, it's going to be more affordable?
Wait,
I'm
if you
concerned.
build more housing, more people will be able to buy and live in Santa Cruz.
well, I mean, we're not talking about
necessarily
just
the
buy.
low-
We're also talking about being able
No,
to
that's
rent.
not going
It won't
to change
go
the
down,
pricing.
to your
It's not
point.
going to change
I
the
can-
price at all.
He's not building places to buy. That's not going to affect the $6 million beach house, but it is going to provide a place where people can affordably pay a rent that they can actually sustain.
I completely agree with you 100% on that.
And if he doesn't build it, then
It's
those
just
won't
you-
exist. So that's a supply solution.
Oh no, it isn't at all.
But it's a very targeted supply solution that's going to target the people who need it the most.
There you
Just
go.
like your idea about parkable place you can park if you're living out of your
And those
But I
are
would
great ideas.
identify
But I would
the need,
also,
yeah.
I would also like to put in another argument, which is that my understanding from supply and demand, from an economic perspective, is that if you understand that as you're building more to try to deal with this crisis, that you're going to get to a point where you're going to build so much to where then the prices are going to start going down.
That's what you hope.
That's
But
what
in
you. No.
California-
That's no. Here's from a renter's perspective. Yes, that's what you would hope.
Yeah.
But from a developer's perspective, that's exactly what you don't want to have happen, because you do not want to be in a position where you're going to build this new building you're going to invest all this money into building, and then all of a sudden, exactly.
But they all know that's not going to happen. I knew it wasn't going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen because you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it if you know that you're going to get to that point.
No,
but that
I'm
is
not
the
gonna
supply.
do it 'cause
That's the
the
supply and
low-income
demand, right? That's the supply and demand point. Because if you build to the point where you're going to get supply higher than demand, which is going to drive prices down, you're not going to do it.
It isn't going to happen in Santa Cruz.
And you're absolutely right. You're right. And that's why we're never going to see supply build to the point where we're going to see a drop in housing prices.
Can I give a quick example of somebody who has a few dollars to his name because of Silicon Valley? I came here from Silly Valley, is what I call it, with a suitcase full of cash, okay? I bought this thing, my wife and I planned, build our house on the left, build a 2 condo with an ADU on the right, okay? The 2 condo was supposed to be for our girlfriends. They decided to do other things. So we say, well, let's rent it. First shock we had was that renter's bill, which is morally bankrupt because 85% of the people who are renting around here are people like me who made a couple clams and can rent a piece of their house or an ADU to somebody. So vilifying them is a problem. But let me just say this. So we were ready to do this, right? Guess what I found out from the city? We got low-income inclusionary housing rule. What does that mean? Oh, it means, Doug, one of those condos for which you could charge $5,000 in rent, you now get to charge $2,000 in rent to help a low-income family. I go, okay, I kind of like that. But by the way, it don't make financial sense anymore for me to build it. I'm not John Swift. I'm not a big developer, right? So what happened is
John will find that amusing.
He's my consultant. So I'm not going to build it, my friend, because you're going to take $175,000 out of my pocket as an in lieu fee so you can go do other things. Will you please let me build it without paying you graft and tell me about this one's project, that one's project, and what you want to do, and I will shell clams out to you because I love what you're saying. That's how
and
I
getting
would
back
get
to
involved.
the supply, getting back to the supply demand question.
Help.
Khalsa?
My apologies to Fred. I didn't mean
Brent.
building multiple $1 million mansions. I meant building affordable housing for people who need it. Going to what Justin's talking about, which is need. Identify the need, and you're on the task force that's doing that. So there may have been a mistaken interpretation of the question. So I'm more talking about, will the task force identify where the needs are, and do they agree, or do they at least have somewhere in their directive that some sort of structure of housing needs to be directed and planned for that need?
A couple of points on that. First of all, one of the things that the Community Advisory Committee on Homelessness that was appointed by the City Council is doing is making sure that people understand what's the responsibility of the City of Santa Cruz and what isn't. And what I mean by that is the fact that people experiencing homelessness is a very visible issue in Santa Cruz inside the city doesn't mean that the City of Santa Cruz government is responsible for solving every aspect of that. They are the folks with the least ability to do that, with the least general fund revenue available to do it, with the least discretion of their general fund revenue. The city happens to be where it's happening.
Because they have the highest tolerance.
Excuse me?
Because they have the highest tolerance. You don't see them staying in city limits of certain nearby towns that have a higher per capita.
That's theoretical.
Well, I'm willing to debate that point because there are essentially 3,000 homeless by the last point survey in Santa Cruz County, and the City of Santa Cruz has a single-digit number of 100 of people. And so what you've got is you've got homeless people experiencing homelessness in every ravine, in every campsite, in everything all over the community. The difference is that inside the City of Santa Cruz, it's visible.
Right. Fred?
And my point here is that the reason I raise this is to say that one of the roles of the CACH is to make sure that what they're recommending to the city council, that's their responsibility, and they've got the ability to do it. It makes no sense to make 20 suggestions to these people that are completely outside their purview. The County of Santa Cruz stands in the shoes of the state government to deliver health and human services and has a huge responsibility on this issue. The state of California does, the federal government does. So what is the CACH going to do? The CACH is going to say, as an appointed body of the city of Santa Cruz, what can the city do?
Sure.
And what can
to
they
be
ask for?
a creative act? And in that, as I indicated earlier, one of the things they're going to do is deal with the hygiene issue. That is not only a city of Santa Cruz issue, that's also a county government issue. So they're going to be making recommendations in December on that. Then they're going to be making recommendations on winter camping. Then they're going to be making recommendations on permanent facility for services. But what they're going to do is say, within that, when we're talking about any one of those issues, it's not all on the city government to do it. Again, they are the least
No, it can't be just
designed
that.
and
Brent
able
was
to do
gonna
that.
ask
They
something
do
that's-
more work.
So let's
I
bring
would
it back
never
to
want to
Brent.
step on you, but it
Close
feels
this.
like we only have a minute left
We have
or
1
something.
minute.
Yeah.
So what's true is we talk about supply and demand. I can actually say that without population caps, Warming Center program has stored every single person in Santa Cruz who needs it because we take every single person who comes in the door. Warming Center has sheltered every single person who comes in the door. We've never turned anyone away. That's your supply and demand. When you don't put a population cap, you discover your true plateauing carrying capacity of need. The shelter program and all homeless programs right now, housing is that way because it's infinite need.
Right.
But with homelessness, they're in every ravine, but we can build programs and services and we
That's
built
right,
them
Brent.
out that every single person who needs storage tonight has it. Every single person who wants laundry tonight has it. And so we need to have scalable design in every single thing. In winter shelter, and that's what I'm here to really talk about. We need a winter shelter, and we talk about hygiene, scalability, and everything.
Yes.
So that's where
Absolutely.
I think that's the final tying together of the full loop.
It's hard to sound so
well. No, and it
Supporting
sounds like
you
if
is
anybody
the
has an
biggest thing.
idea of where the
You-
plateau
you.
is, you're not reading the statistics in the paper. You're actually seeing them firsthand, and I think it would be good for the CACH to consult people on the
we
front
do.
lines.
And
We do.
like them, yeah.
Brent's been multiple. And
I've
we'd love
got
to hear
to
from him.
force myself
Well,
there. I'm not
you should
welcome
have last word.
to make
I'll-
the presentation.
And I'll just say
Yep.
briefly,
We'll close it out. Yeah.
services. If we want to address
I would like to.
homelessness, we have to start primarily with the services.
Yeah.
Services,
We
not
can
supply.
then get to housing,
If
but we
you
need to
want to
start.
continue the shows, please let them know. We'll be doing a live hour with Justin Cummings and perhaps the police chief shortly. Please
Okay.
say that right now.
All right.
Thank you.
So.
Do you finish your last
Thank you for
statement?
joining us for this discussion. As usual, it gets lively because there's a lot of emotion around this, and as you can see, many people are trying very hard to help with the solution. If you want to join us for our next installment, we will have Chief Andy Mills joining us shortly with Justin Cummings and talking about similar issues. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Five
Yeah,
different
thank you very
shows.
much.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.